Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today's date is August 6th, 2020. Today is Thursday. And the first thing we have to talk about today is the explosion that happened in Lebanon. Um, I'm I'd be surprised if you haven't already heard about this, but on August 4th, there was a huge explosion in a storage facility in Lebanon that completely decimated an entire port area, created a huge crater. You can go look at the before and after pictures, and there's a ginormous crater in the port where the facility used to stand. Currently, as of today's date, most media outlets are reporting that the death toll is at 135, with 5,000 people known to be injured, although the expectation is that all of these numbers will rise over the following days as more rubble or more stuff is uncovered and things are lifted and moved around and the search continues essentially. So I mean, this is absolutely the video is devastating. My heart goes out to these people. It's just one of the most terrible things I've ever seen in my life. Not even just while I've been on this earth. I mean, we've seen tragedies happen in the past before we were born, but while I've been alive and I'm 20 years old, this might be the worst thing uh, in my memory, of course, because I know horrible things happened while I was much younger, too young to remember. But in living memory, this is probably one of the worst things I've seen, I've personally experienced. And I think that's true for many other people my age and younger. So the immediate questions obviously are what caused it? What was the cause of this explosion? What, could it have been prevented? What was going on? So apparently, according, and again, this is only just 2 days out, so information is rapidly changing. But as of today, most people are saying, well, the authorities in Lebanon and Beirut are saying that it was a storage. They were storing large amounts of ammonium nitrate, over 2,000 tons, I believe it was, of ammonium nitrate. Um, this ammonium nitrate was confiscated in 2013 from a Russian ship. Well, the ship had a Moldovan flag on it, but it was owned by a Russian oligarch, and it was confiscated in 2013 by port authorities. The port authorities had no way of properly storing this, and they were under-equipped to do it. So they sent several letters to the judiciary in Lebanon with no response as to what to do with all this ammonium nitrate. Um, there were inspections several times since 2013 saying that the ways in which this ammonium nitrate was stored, and ammonium nitrate is a compound used in fertilizer and explosives for those who don't know. There were several inspections that said that this is dangerous the way it's being stored. There were people who said that this could take out the entire city, and I mean we saw what happened, and it's just awful. And so they had known that this was a problem for a long time, and they got no response from their judiciary as to where it could be moved, what would be a more proper way of storing this. And so it was just pure. What it seems right now is just pure neglect by the judiciary and in Lebanon to as to what to do with this. And I mean, I don't think assigning blame is the most important thing right now. Just helping these people and understanding how this happened is what we need to focus on. It started by, if you were unaware, it started by a fire either in a nearby building or inside the building itself. Again, all this stuff is unclear. And then the fire spread to where the ammonium nitrate was stored, and there was a huge explosion that took the whole building down. Um, and when I saw this, I obviously thought, I have to talk about this on the show. We have to have a discussion. And I didn't think this would I didn't think this would involve Trump. Okay, I thought, Trump is obviously going to come out. He's the president. He has to say, our hearts are with these people and this and that. And that's what he did do. But Trump also came out and called it an attack. And just take a listen to this.
Our prayers go out to all the victims and their families. The United States stands ready to assist Lebanon. We have a very good relationship with the people of Lebanon, and we will be there to help. It looks like a terrible attack. I also want to provide the latest on Tropical Storm Isaias.
Now, I hope you appreciated the fact that I left in the small little segment there at the end where he struggled to pronounce Isaias, just to lighten the mood a little bit. But it's hard to find any sort of solace in what's happening here because it's just such a terrible situation. But that was kind of funny. I thought that was funny. But anyway, he called it an attack, which was, and this was, I believe, on the same day. Yes, it was on the same. It was a press conference on the same day, and he called it an attack, which is very strange. I mean, in these sorts of situations, maybe people in positions of power, like presidents, they know things that just the rest of us don't know. And, nobody questioned him about it in that press conference. But on the next press conference the next day, they asked him about it. They said, "You called it an attack. What did you mean by that?" And let's listen to that.
We can't lose our transportation system. Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you too on Beirut. So there's been some question about your comments yesterday saying that it was an attack and that you'd heard from military officials that there was, an explosion, that it looked like
Well, they
some
don't
sort
really
of a
know what it
bomb.
was. I can tell you, whatever happened, it's terrible, but they don't really know what it is. Nobody knows yet. At this moment, they're looking. It could. I mean, how can you say accident? Somebody was, left some terrible explosive type devices and things around. Perhaps it was that. Perhaps it was an attack. I don't think anybody can say right now. We're looking into it very strongly. Right now, it's. You have some people think it was an attack, and you have some people that think it wasn't. In any event, it was a terrible event, and a lot of people were killed, and a tremendous number of people were badly wounded, injured, and we're standing with that country. We have a very good relationship with that country, but it's a country under a lot of turmoil, a lot of problems, but we stand with them.
So, in typical Trump fashion, he does not retract the statement. He doesn't say, I said that and it seemed like, it could have gone either way. He did say, which was a valid point, that who knows, how could you call this an accident with how terrible it was? And that's a valid point, in a way, I guess, but it's completely irresponsible to say that when you're in a position of power and authority and people listen to what you say, and a lot of people, millions of people in your own country and around the world take what you say seriously. I mean, not so much in other countries anymore. I mean, not that they ever did take him seriously. But he's not going to retract the statement. He's not going to apologize or anything. He's going to double down in typical Trump fashion. Did anybody expect for Trump to come out and say, "Oh, you know what? I was wrong about this. Maybe I shouldn't have said." No, like we don't expect that from Trump anymore. This is a typical "I'm going to politicize my mistakes" situation. If you remember when Trump said that a certain hurricane, I forgot the name of the hurricane, it was for several months ago, said it was going to hit Alabama. It was expected to hit Florida and Georgia and other states on the southeastern coast. And he said, well, this hurricane is going to hit Alabama. And he said that with absolutely no evidence at all of this, just like with what he said right now. There's zero evidence, zero indication from anybody that this was an attack. But with what he did with the hurricane that was going to hit Georgia and Florida, he said this is also going to hit Alabama with zero evidence. And then for several weeks, he went on this whole tweet spree about, yes, it is going to hit Alabama. And he did the thing where he moved the trajectory of the hurricane with the Sharpie to include Alabama in its trajectory. And he politicizes his mistakes because he can never admit when he's wrong. And this is something we've known about Donald Trump for a long time. And it's just so sad to think in the following weeks, when more information comes out on what happened, you can expect to see Donald Trump retweet any indication, small indication by Fox News or OAN or some sort of expert who is partisan to say it was suspected that this was somehow an attack, and he's gonna retweet that. He's gonna and something that should have just been a mistake. Maybe he slipped up. Maybe he shouldn't have said that. Something that was originally a mistake is now going to be a political issue. It's now what it shouldn't have been an issue of is this an attack or was this an accident? It shouldn't have. But now that Trump has said it, now that the cat is out of the bag, you're going to see his followers online saying this could have possibly been an attack. I mean, they can't say it was an attack because there's no evidence. So, but they're gonna retweet and post and comment every single thing that slightly maybe indicates that this could have been an attack on purpose because Donald Trump said this. He's the conspiracy theorist in chief, and he doesn't apologize, and he just says whatever he wants. And He even said in the clip I just showed, he's like, well, it's unclear. Who knows? Yeah, who does know? Nobody knows right now. So why would you come out and say something like that when you don't have the information, you don't have the complete facts? Sadly though, this is what we've come to expect from Donald Trump. Again, my heart goes out, my sentiments go out to the people of Beirut. It's absolutely just one of the most catastrophically horrible things I've seen in recent memory. And I mean, I hope they can recover from this. I hope that they hold their government accountable for what happened, and I hope this brings new change in Lebanon. I hope we can put a positive spin on this somehow, and I will definitely be supporting any efforts, and I hope we all do to make sure things like this don't happen again, and that we eliminate the sort of government. I don't know if you want to call it corruption. I've seen some people call it corruption and sort of complacency from the government. I don't know much about Lebanese politics. I really don't. So I'm not an authority on this, but I've heard other people say things about how this is endemic of what the lack of governance and the lack of coordination and care by the government there. And I hope regardless, I might be wrong. Don't take me as an authority on this, but I might be wrong. But I hope positive change comes out of this, and I think we can all hope for that, no matter who we are or what we believe. So I live in Texas's second district. Maybe I shouldn't be out there telling people who don't know me or strangers online exactly where I live, even though it's not exact. But I live in Texas's second district, which is represented by Dan Crenshaw. And Dan Crenshaw is just one of these guys who's a Trump mouthpiece. He is a perpetuator of Trumpisms and lies and sort of everything that's wrong with the Republican Party today. And he's up for re-election in the general election today, or today, this year. And Crenshaw needs to be taken out. He is a Okay, I'm trying not to use charged language, and I'm trying to keep this purely fact-based. But I mean, I'm just so against Dan Crenshaw for everything he's done, and let's just talk about it. Okay, so Nate Silver's 538.com, which does amazing political analysis using data, says that Crenshaw votes in line with Trump 93.7% of the time, which is, I mean, even among Republicans, that's one of the highest. And like I said, Dan Crenshaw repeatedly echoes a lot of the sentiments that come out of the Trump administration, and a lot of the lies that come out of the Trump administration and the fear mongering. I actually showed a clip of Dan Crenshaw, which I'll play right now, of when he tried to stoke fear mongering in Americans in his base by lying on Fox News. Let's listen to that clip again.
Seconds left, but Antifa, do they exist? Because there's some Democrats don't think they exist. That
it's amazing,
Republicans
isn't it?
are bringing it up because it's a distraction.
Well, we'll have security hearings with the FBI and the Homeland Security Committee, and I will hear multiple Democrats question whether Antifa even exists. I will hear that in the halls of Congress. It truly is unbelievable. And I say, guys, if you're not sure if they exist, there's hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of videos of them. They wear a uniform, basically. They have a symbol. Yes, they exist. Yes, they exist. They're, you can call them anarcho-fascist, communist, whatever they are. In any case, they're basically a domestic terrorist organizations. Okay, they're destroying property. They're hurting people. And they fundamentally want a revolution inside the United States of America. And we can't sugarcoat this anymore.
Now, on the other episode where I showed this, I showed the clip, and then I incorrectly said that he said anarcho-communist fascism, when in reality he said anarcho-fascist communism. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter really that I got it wrong, because either way, these are things that don't exist and are purely politically charged language to try to incite fear in people, and it's just lies, like just straight up lies. And he said it so confidently on Fox and Friends and on TV, because he's just one of these people who, it doesn't matter if you're telling the truth, and he's realized that because he's seen the president. It's just, I need to say things that my base are gonna like, or that it's going to incite fear in my base, which will then motivate them even more to come out and vote. So anarcho-fascist communism. I've already explained how in a previous episode why that makes no sense at all. But again, he's just one of these Trump mouthpieces. She also voted no on impeachment, which is an indictment of every single Republican, uh, of the entire Republican Party, essentially, in Congress, for having done that. He wasn't the only. I know some people will say, well, he wasn't the only Republican that voted no on impeachment, whatever. Uh, well, in the House, I believe zero Republicans voted yes on impeachment. So, and the only person that voted yes was in the Senate was Mitt Romney, and he only did it on one of the impeachment counts. He didn't do it on both. But and so people will say, well, he's just trying to stay in line with his party, so we can't blame him for that. No, we can blame him for that. We can hold him personally responsible for the things for things he does and the way he votes, because that's our job as people who are in his district and people who are under his, I guess, well, no, not under his jurisdiction, but who live in his district and who should be holding him accountable. I mean, I don't care if all the other Republicans, you are supposed to do the right thing. You are supposed to make your own independent decisions. So he voted no on impeachment. And he's just a dishonest guy, again, with what the clip I showed. And if you need to follow him on Twitter, he's constantly tweeting lies about Antifa and retweeting the president, or not retweeting the president, but echoing sentiments of the president. I'm sure he does retweet the president, but I get those tweets directly from the source, so I don't have to go to Crenshaw's uh, what's it called, Twitter, to see that. But recently on Crenshaw's Twitter, he blasted Obama for meddling in his election, the upcoming election, in which Dan Crenshaw is going to be challenged, um, by Seema L. I'm not gonna try to pronounce her last name, but because I don't want to say it incorrectly, but he does have a challenger. Dan Crenshaw does, Seema L. And Obama recently endorsed her, and so that's why Dan Crenshaw came out and said this is election meddling. And I don't see how Obama coming out and saying I endorse these people is meddling. People endorse people all the time. SEMA is also endorsed by several currently sitting congressional members and people part of the state legislature and different progressive organizations or democratic organizations. Um, so I don't see how. I mean, certainly Obama's opinion on a candidate uh, has much more impact than a Democratic organization or a currently elected official in Congress. But it's not election meddling. And Dan Crenshaw went on Twitter and said Obama is now trying to meddle in our election. He's also on his Twitter several times echoed this Trump sentiment that in reality Joe Biden is just an empty vessel who is actually really far left, and he wants to. Now, I don't know if he said all of these things exactly. I know some of these things he has said, abolish police, abolish prisons, and do all these super far left crazy things. And, I don't even know what other things they say that Joe Biden, well, I know what the president says, but he echoes these sentiments. He doesn't correct the president. He's just one of these people who, again, he will lie just to stoke fear in his base and to say, Joe Biden is actually not the moderate you think he is. Um, he said this several times, and we all know Joe Biden is he's not. He's even said Joe Biden has said himself he's not going to fundamentally change anything for the rich and the wealthy in our society. I mean you're either just actively ignoring everything that Joe Biden has stood for his entire political career and over the past few years and everything he says he wants to stand and fight for, or you're just lying. And I mean, I hope you kind of hope they're lying, because at least if they're lying, they're informed and they're making informed decisions, although the decisions they make are antithetical to the information they receive. But at least they're informed in that way. You kind of have to hope that they're at least reading. But I mean, sadly, I don't even know if these people. I mean, they might be drinking their own Kool-Aid. They really might. Um, SEMA, she was also endorsed by Beto O'Rourke, who I voted for against Ted Cruz in 2018, and the sheriff Ed Gonzalez here in Harris County, who I'm personally a supporter of, and I hope to actually get him on the show. to talk about policing in Harris County at some point in the future. But she's an okay candidate. She's sort of one of these moderate. Yeah, well, okay, she's not a moderate. She is progressive, but she's not a progressive in the sort of vein that you might think Bernie Sanders or AOC. She's one of these Medicare for all who want it types, which maybe is a more realistic goal right now in the short term or in the foreseeable future. Medicare for all single payer, where it's the only insurance available. I mean, that's what I personally would like to see in the United States, and I personally think that that's the best system. But with how things are right now, I think having a candidate who is for expanding Medicare to everybody while still keeping private insurance, I mean, it's not the most ideal situation, and it will lead to problems. But it's definitely better than having a Democratic candidate who or yeah, I don't even care about other Democrats. It's better than Dan Crenshaw. Okay, it's way better than Dan Crenshaw, who says that these packages for wanting to spend, the Green New Deal, which I'm also a supporter of, and Medicare for All, that I support. He says these are fantasies. We can't do these while at the same time voting for inflated military budgets. It's absolutely it makes no sense in voting yes on the corporate bailouts that we've done for coronavirus. These people are lying. Again, they're just dishonest, and at least I can look at Seema and say she's honest in her positioning. She's not lying. She's not trying to pander to a certain audience. She believes that Medicare for all period is maybe not a realistic option right now, and she wants Medicare for all who wants it. And she's not a supporter of Green New Deal either, although she is interested in moving Texas towards renewable energy and increasing our jobs in energy. So if you live in Texas, a second district, I encourage you. The Texas Progressive, the show, is now officially endorsed Seema for Texas' second district, and she wants gun reform as well. And okay, and one of the important things we need to realize is you might be listening to this and you'll say, well, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden just because I really hate Trump. But I don't know. I kind of like Dan Crenshaw, or I don't know about my congressional seat. And look, we can get rid of Trump. Okay, if you are listening to this right now and you're one of these people who I'm voting no on Trump, I'm voting yes for Biden this November, but I'm unsure about Dan Crenshaw. Stop. Okay, dispel this from your mind, because getting rid of Trump does nothing to get rid of Trumpism in our politics. And Dan Crenshaw is one of the biggest perpetuators of Trumpism and Trump's lies and conspiracy theories that we have right now. So it's like, you can vote. If you don't like Trump, then you should also, even if you don't know anything, take my word for it. Take my information that I just given you about Dan Crenshaw. If you want Trump out, we're not just going to get Trump out by voting Trump out. Trump's cronies and Trump's sycophants and Trump's people who echo his talking points are still going to be there, and Trumpism is still going to infect our politics, and that's because of people like Dan Crenshaw. So if you want to not only take Trump but Trumpism out of politics, vote against Dan Crenshaw. Vote for Seema this November. So I wanted to end this on a funny note. Well, it's funny, but it's really sad. You might have seen Trump's. I'm not going to talk about the Axios interview. I'll do that this weekend. But you might have seen Trump's interview with Fox and Friends. That was yesterday at 7:30 a.m. at the where the White House is in D.C., but 6:30 over here in Texas. And man, this was sort of, all Trump interviews are hilarious. First of all, I would challenge somebody to find me an interview of Trump where he doesn't lie or he doesn't say something hilariously stupid or irresponsible. But this one is just so good. I mean, I have a lot of clips and we're going to look at them. So immediately, obviously, not even a minute into the video, he tells a lie about mail-in voting. Let's take a listen to that.
Can we talk about probably the thing that everybody's talking about today, and that's mail-in voting? What seems to bother you most, and stop me if I'm wrong, is if a state like Nevada or another state just blankets a state with ballots unrequested. And that's different from requesting an absentee ballot because you're concerned about your health or the pandemic. Would you make that? Am I accurate in that dissemination?
No, absentee is okay because you have to go through a process, Brian. And you go through a process and you make a request and they send it to you and you get it and you fill it out. And it's a process and it's a smaller number. What they're going to do is blanket the state. Anybody that ever walked, frankly, will get one. And, you know, the governor's a clubhouse politician. He's somebody that, frankly, was shocking. And shocking what he did, more shocking what he did. Without town halls, without meetings, without the public, they went out and they just approved this ridiculous system. And the post office will never be equipped to handle it. And you see it in New York in a much smaller scale. We have a congressional race, Carolyn Maloney, a congresswoman. It's been 6.5 weeks now. They have no idea what happened. They're thousands of votes off. They're missing votes. They're fraudulent votes. They have to do the election over. There's no way that she can take that election.
So again, I've said this before, mail-in voting, absentee voting, it's the same thing. So what's happening in Nevada is they're expanding mail-in voting for everybody. No, okay, I'm sorry. See, this is, okay, I caught myself there. They're expanding mail-in voting to all registered voters. So mail-in voting, absentee voting, they're the exact same thing. Stop letting Trump and people on Fox News try to convince you that all of these things are different and that we're now trying to do some suddenly new system that's going to corrupt our political process. No, he lies and he says that they're going to give it to everybody who walks, which is a lie. No, only registered voters get these. And plus, they're completely ignoring the fact, and I have yet to see a single right-wing media outlet press Donald Trump on, well, several states do exclusively mail-in voting, and they have been doing it for a long time. I forgot every single one that does. I know Colorado is one of them, and they've been doing that for a long time. And they have, if they have any election fraud at all, I mean, I think we would have heard about it. But I mean, we don't hear about often election fraud coming out of these states that vote exclusively mail-in. I believe Alaska is another one. They've been doing this for years at this point, and it's the same. And absentee voting, mail-in voting, it's the same thing. Again, he also mentioned a race in New York with Maloney. I forgot her first name. And what was actually really funny is later that same day that he had this interview on August 5th with Fox and Friends, Trump had a press conference in which he said to the press that, well, now it seems like they've announced the winner of this race in New York, which I called out earlier on Fox News, and he suggested that they announced the winner because he called them out on Fox News and because he called for there to be a do-over of the election, which he did do. He called for there to be a do-over. He said that because he did that, now they're wanting to pick a winner. And he said that this could be fraud of some kind. He said, what's going on there? You know, that should be looked at. So he suggested that because he said there was a problem with voting in this particular district with Maloney, that they then announced Maloney as the winner. Because of him, because he started to stoke speculation in people. Like, insane, absolutely insane. And again, he's just lying. They're not sending it to everybody who's walked. They're sending it to registered voters. Several states have been doing exclusively mail-in for years. So just more lies. So let's look at the next clip in which he talks about children. And this is probably the best out of all of them.
Mr. President, at this moment, around kitchen tables, one of the biggest question mark for families and parents and kids is, will my children actually be going back to school? Could the plan that exists now change later? Teachers' unions out there making demands like take the cops out of the school, and we need Medicare for all, and crazy political demands that feel like extortion. Yet to a parent, they want to know, will it be in person? Will it be virtual? If I'm in a private school, are they going to treat me? Do they put the same parameters the governor did on the government schools? What is the latest on your view of how these schools should reopen?
My view is the schools should open. This thing's going away. It will go away like things go away. And my view is that schools should be open. If you look at children are almost, and I would almost say definitely, but almost immune from this disease. So few. They've got stronger, hard to believe, I don't know how you feel about it, but they have much stronger immune systems than we do somehow for this. And they do it, they don't have a problem. They just don't have a problem. I mean, literally, in New Jersey, where you had thousands, many thousands of deaths, the governor, Phil Murphy, told me, good guy too, by the way, but he told me thousands and thousands of deaths. It was hard hit. There was only one person under the age of 18 who died of this, and I think that person also had diabetes, a young person. It doesn't, and especially when you get younger than that, it doesn't have an impact on them. And I've watched some doctors say they're totally immune. I don't know. I hate to use the word totally because the news will say, oh, he made the word totally and he shouldn't have used that word. But the fact is that they are virtually immune from this problem, and we have to open our schools.
So I hope I'm not breaking this news to you right now, but children are not immune from this. They can get it. Children have died. Not only that, but children pass it on to their teachers, which is a big issue when you have a lot of older teachers. And to be completely fair to Trump, he did later on, and if you keep on watching after the segment I just played, he does talk about elderly teachers and how he believes that teachers who are elderly or are susceptible to have a really severe case of coronavirus should not be showing up to work. But okay, fine, and I guess, but why even open up schools at all right now? We've seen schools around the country just already open up, and on their first day back, I believe it was a school district in Georgia, they closed it down and they said we're going online only because somebody had coronavirus on the first day. A kid had walked around, he had gone to class, he had been in the hallways, he had been in contact with several students. Oh, I don't know if it was a boy student actually, but this did happen, and children are not immune. I would be very curious to see these doctors that Trump is talking about that say children are totally immune, and he said I don't want to use the word totally because then the media will come out and say, and it's so, and that moment to me was sort of stunning because Trump had a sort of moment of introspection in which he said, well, if I say totally, they're totally immune, they're going to come after me because that's a lie. And so that should have been, that moment right there should have been a window that lets you know Trump knows when he's lying. Trump knows when he's exaggerating, but he does it anyway. He does it anyway because he doesn't care. And this is how they win. They just lie, and he knows it. I mean, I don't think he always knows it. I don't think he always knows that what he's saying is a lie. I think he might actually, like the term I've used in the past, be bathing in his own, or drinking his own Kool-Aid, bathing in the Kool-Aid, as I say when somebody's just completely lost. But he might be drinking his own he's drinking his own Kool-Aid most of the time, and other times he just knows he's lying, and he does it anyway. Children are not immune, and it is. You know, we've become numb to these things. When the president goes on TV and he says children are immune to coronavirus, we're just like, wow, he's a crazy guy. That's crazy. But imagine Obama had said, hey, you know what? Children are actually, I've seen children they're actually immune to H1N1, and we don't need to do much about it. It would have been a national headline for weeks. But this one, I promise you, after this weekend, nobody's going to be talking about this. I mean, even if it makes the headlines this weekend at all, actually. I mean, I'm sure that if you are an avid consumer of media, I'm not the first one talking about the story that you've heard about Trump saying children are totally immune. But I might be the last. I don't think people are going to talk about this for too long because we just expect the president to say stupid, crazy things at this point that have zero evidence. And for him to say, you know, there's several doctors that I know that he's said in the past that doctors have been impressed with how much he knows about medicine, and he said so many other anti-science things in the past. Again, putting Stella Emanuel, the doctor who talked about demon sperm and that hydroxychloroquine is a cure for COVID, and that doctors use alien DNA to cure patients. I mean, I'm very curious to see which doctors have told Trump that children are totally immune. I kind of doubt that these doctors exist, but then again, I'm like, well, he's kind of he's kind of able to find anybody who's an expert that will repeat his talking points, and it's really sad, it's really sick, it's disgusting, and sadly, we've become desensitized, we've become numb to this sort of stuff, we just don't care anymore. But this is completely irresponsible. So, for the third time on Fox News, Trump has been given an opportunity to tell everybody, to tell the world what his second term agenda is. And just like the other two times, he has nothing. Let's take a look.
Mr. President, what is your second term agenda? What are your top priorities?
I want to take where we left. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world. We were better than any other country. We were better than we were ever. We never had anything like it. This country, 160 million people working. We've never had that before. We've never even come close to that. Best employment numbers, best unemployment numbers for African American, Asian American, women, Hispanic, everybody. The best numbers we've ever had, the best stock market we've ever had, although we're coming very close right now. In fact, NASDAQ is already higher than that number, so a lot of good things are happening. That means to be jobs. What I want to do is take it from that point and then build it even better. We are becoming a great manufacturer again. I'm taking business and I'm taking trade back from these other countries that have ripped us off for years. Our allies also have been ripping us off for years.
So Trump said nothing right there. All he said was, well, our economy was doing real well before this whole thing happened with China, and I'm just going to continue doing that. So, but he lays out no actual way in which he does that. He said, I've brought manufacturing back. I'm tough on trade with these countries, without telling us, well, okay, what are the policies? What are you going to do? Don't just say, hey, I had the best economy, before all this, and we're just going to continue that in my net. What do you, what? He can't even say something like, he can't even give like some sort of Republican spin where he says nothing in like a more eloquent way. I mean, he said nothing right there, but he could have said nothing in a more eloquent manner by saying, we're going to continue cutting taxes and regulation and this and that. He could have said something. Right? But he has nothing, because this is his third time he's been asked on Fox News, which is a very friendly network to Donald Trump, that gives him, as I've shown you in the past few clips we've seen, he can say anything he wants, and even if it's abhorrently false, they're not going to stop the interview and be like, Mr. President, what on earth are you talking about? No, they're just going to let him keep talking, right? So even on a really easy softball network like Fox News for Donald Trump, he has nothing. He has no answer because he has no second term agenda. All he's writing on is the culture war, which I made an episode about, which you should definitely watch. It's on SoundCloud. Oh, well, it's not under Texas Progressive, but I assume if you're watching this, you probably know how to get there. I'll include a link in the description about the culture war. He's entirely writing on the culture war to get him reelected. There's no policy for the second agenda, for the second term. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is actual policy, that's not going to sound good to say on air. He's not going to want to say to everybody right now in the middle of a crisis, well, we're going to continue cutting taxes and deregulating industries. That's not even his own viewers or even his own supporters will be like, oh, I don't know about that one with everything that's been happening with coronavirus. And plus, okay, I haven't talked about this on my channel, but this whole line about I had the best economy. We had the best economy in our history under Obama. Okay, we had the best economy in our history under George Bush. At some point in their presidency, we had the best economy in our history under this talking point. Our economy is constantly growing. We're constantly producing new people. We're constantly growing the size and the wealth of our nation. And so it's like every year, unless something crazy happens, we're going to have the best economy. But there are no real metrics that he cites other than, well, the stock market is doing really, really well right now. Right? The stock market is not the economy. The stock market doesn't tell you, we have a stock market that's really well right now, but how many people are going to be evicted next month? How many people are going to become homeless? How many people are starving right now? How many people have no money in their savings? Who cares how the stock market is doing? The stock market doesn't tell us anything about how much money is in the hands of Americans. It doesn't tell us if we're getting good wages. Ooh, voice crack. Doesn't tell us if we're getting good wages. Doesn't tell us if the jobs are good, if the job conditions are. The stock market tells us nothing about the day-to-day life of the average American. Okay, and most of the stock market is owned by just a few people who are very rich. So this number and then after this clip, I mean, if you continue watching where I left off in that clip, which is about 26 minutes into the Fox and Friends interview, he talks about Germany and Russia and how they've been helping Russia fight Germany, and Germany is, although that Germany is taking energy from Russia, and he wants to Germany to buy our energy, like, because we export energy in the way of oil and coal and things of that nature. And he just starts rambling on about NATO and other. I mean, he doesn't have a plan, and that's really obvious, I think, to anybody who's an honest observer right here. So next, he talks about Antifa, and oh my God, Fox News asks. I'll just play it.
Is right, and look, this isn't being naive. This is being untruthful. These are lying people. These are untruthful people. They know it exists. Antifa is a horrible group. It's a far left group, and they used to try and blame the right on all this stuff. And now, finally, at least they're not doing that so much anymore. I don't see very much of that at all, almost never. Antifa is a far-left group of radical anarchists, and agitators is a nice word, but they're really anarchists.
Who finances
the
them?
The Democrats know they exist. You have Democrats funding them. They say Soros and they say other people. Who knows? But they're funded. You see them standing there with weapons that are expensive, with signs that were made. I mean, literally, they have signs. Some of their little marches, they have signs that were made in a high-class printing shop.
So he kind of goes on in the first 3 seconds with his little Antifa dribble about the Democrats and this and that. And then the Fox News host asks him, who's funding them? And he says, the Democrats and George Soros. And if you're unfamiliar with conspiracy theories, and I've called Trump the conspiracy theorist in chief in the past, and that's very accurate, and that shows right here. If you're unfamiliar with conspiracy theories, George Soros, who's a Jewish man whose family fled from the Holocaust, who's now a billionaire, has been the center of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories for, I mean, as long as I've been alive, as long as I've been interested in politics, about him funding both sides and this and that. But Trump comes out and says on Fox News that the Democrats and George Soros are funding Antifa. And again, we've become desensitized to this stuff, but it's like, these are the ramblings of somebody who's losing his mind. What is he talking? Antifa doesn't receive funding because Antifa doesn't exist. They're not real. They don't exist on an official capacity. Like I've said in the past, I can go on Etsy, buy a Antifa patch, walk out into my front yard, all of a sudden I'm an Antifa terrorist. These people aren't, there's no head of Antifa, there's no meetings, there's nothing. Because they're not an organization that exists, that gets funding, and that organizes to go out to places. People can go and say, and under the guise of being part of Antifa, they wear black and then they wear a patch with the Antifa, they wear the Antifa patch or whatever. But that doesn't make them an official organization. Again, Antifa is the new communist. I mean, I doubt any older people are listening to this, but if you remember, people would be defamed by congressmen. If you're familiar with McCarthyism in the 50s, I believe it was 50s, 60s, somewhere in that time frame. But they would label people as communists, and they would essentially cancel them. Republicans or conservatives are against cancel culture these days, and they would essentially label anybody a communist, and they would be canceled. They would be excommunicated from certain. They couldn't get a job. And so that's essentially what's happening now with Antifa. If you label somebody as Antifa, it's not like if I were to call, it's not like I can use the word Republican as a boogeyman word, right? Or I think the word is bogeyman for the way I'm trying to use it, but I think you understand. It's not like I could go out in the world and see these protesters that I disagree with and say, oh, these are just Republican agitators, right? Because we would be able to go out and prove, well, are these people actually Republicans? Because Republicanism is the Republican Party is a real party. It's an organization that exists, and people are registered as Republicans, and these people organize, and they are a real political group. And so I couldn't then go out and say these people are Republicans without having some sort of objective reason to believe that. And so what they do with Antifa, since it doesn't exist, you can go out and say this person is Antifa, or this group is Antifa, and there's no way to disprove that because it's not real. And so they can just say this without consequence from their own side. I mean, obviously, people are on my side of issues, and okay, never, not even be people on my side, just people who see reality for what it is and not for what you would like it to be, know that they're just using this as a sort of cudgel, and that they're weaponizing it, and that they're lying and they're being dishonest. So Soros and Democrats, it's unbelievable. It's almost unbelievable that he says something like this and nobody bats an eye. I promise you, the children are immune line is going to get more headlines than Democrats and Soros are funding Antifa. It's going to get more because that it's just so baseless, and he kind of said it in passing, but it's like we've set the bar so low for our president that this isn't even going to make the news. And if Obama had come out and said, even if George Bush had come out and said, well, actually, let me not say that because he was pretty crazy, and they let him get away with a lot of really stupid things. But if Obama had come out and said Antifa is funded by Soros and Democrats, holy shit. I mean, I don't even know what the headlines would have been for weeks. I mean, maybe they would have liked it because it played into what they believe, that they being right-wing media, but whatever. And Trump also went on later in the interview to say that he again did more for blacks in this country than any other president, with maybe the exception of Abraham Lincoln, which again I don't need to explain to you how insane that is. But then he also later suggested, well, I mean, maybe I actually did more. I mean, there's a conversation there to be had about who did more for blacks, me or Abraham Lincoln. So this is a completely delusional person. He's losing his mind. He's a liar. We need to vote him out. And that's it. And I'm just going to keep on saying that until the day he's no longer president. So thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We talked about a lot. We're going to release a new episode this weekend. Be sure to tune into that, and I'll see you in the next one.